Hey guys, welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. My name is Chantal, and today's episode is actually a pre-recorded video that we've converted into a podcast in regards to snack feeding. So if you've got a little one, particularly the age between 6 weeks and 4 to 6 months, and you're experiencing snack feeding quite often through the day or cluster feeding, this episode may help. If you do find this podcast helpful, please feel free to share it with another mum or a friend, and thanks again for listening. Hey guys, today's video I'm going to talk a little bit about cluster feeding. So if you've got a baby between the age of, newborn and particularly 4 to 6 months, obviously before they start solids, and your bubba is feeding a lot during the day, so snacking, cluster feeding, snacking, just literally feeding around the clock. What I'm going to offer now is some tips to try and avoid that and what you can do to try and help that as well. So first of all, particularly the first few weeks of them being born, 6 weeks, it's very normal for bubbas, newborn babies, to cluster feed and feed around the clock. What they're trying to do is establish, especially breastfeeding mums, you're trying to establish your supply, they're trying to boost your supply, and that's kind of classed somewhat normal. When they reach beyond that 6 week mark though, and in between 6 weeks particularly, and like I said, 4 to 6 months, what you want to try and do at that point then is create more of a structure with daytime feeds, because what that does is eliminate cluster feeding or snack feeding during the day, and can also help your cause when it comes to night feeding and night waking. Because look, in a perfect world, parents don't want to be waking through the night often to be feeding. We all understand that new babies need feeding overnight, and even until they're about 1 year of age. Some cases, babies at that point still need a night feed. Most parents are okay with that. What they're not okay with is waking constantly through the night. And when I say constantly, every hour or two, it's a lot. Most babies, even newborns, are capable of going at least 4 hours through the night in between feeds. If they're waking up more often than that, then we need to look at their daytime calories, because babies and toddlers are very good at controlling their own calories. So that means the more we can offer them and give them through the day, the less likely they're going to need to wake up through the night to need extra or additional feeds. They're still going to need feeding through the night. If you're really lucky, you might be lucky and get a bub that wakes once or sometimes none through the night because they're getting everything they need through the day. That's great for you. But most cases, bubs will still need feeding through the night. If you can get 4 hours apart, that's ideal. That's kind of what we want to achieve. The best way to try and achieve that is to ensure that they're getting enough daytime calories. One way to try and help that is to structure their daytime feed. So normally speaking, I suggest offering a full feed every 2 to 3 hours through the day. And what we want to do is a full feed. We don't want snacking. This is where you can get inconsistencies with day and night when bub is snacking, because what's happening is they're snacking often, they're not sleeping for a long period of time because they can't sleep for a long period of time because they're not full enough to sleep for a long period of time. So you kind of get this headbutting effect of this catch-22 where bub will snack, nap, snack, nap, snack, nap, and then through the night it's the same scenario as well. They snack or they feed, but they don't sleep for very long. You might get 2 hours if you're lucky, and look, that's not ideal. So the best way to try and eliminate that is to ensure they're getting full feeds through the day, which means avoid the snacking, and so bub can create an appetite. What we want bub to do is to get hungry. We don't want him to get fussy and irritable and have a 2 or 3 or 5 minute snack, and then it just takes the edge off for 20 minutes or an hour. We want them to get an appetite. You want to build up an appetite so they're very hungry, actually ravenously hungry, and when they feed properly. Now, whether that's breast or bottle, I don't care. It's however it works for you and them. If you're doing breast, if you can do both sides, that's great. But if you've only got a one side feeder, again, if that works for you and bub, I don't want to change that. That's not what I'm here to do. I just want to make sure that bub is getting the most that we can at the times that we need to. So again, like I said, you want to avoid that snacking. So if you are in that predicament where they're just snacking around the clock every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even every hour, what you want to try and do is when they get a little bit fussy or irritable, is distraction. Take them away, take them outside, give them a new toy, give them a new activity, because babies get bored. And what you may often confuse that with is hunger cues or even tired cues. So what you might find, bub wakes up for the day at 7 a.m, you feed bub, pop them on the floor, and within 15, 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour if you're really lucky, they start to get cranky and irritable and show those cues that they're getting tired or even hungry. And at that point, it's very often confused with hunger cues. You pop them back on the breast or you give them another bit of a bottle, and they're quite fussy. They'll have a few meals, they'll have a few minutes, and then they'll arch their back and they'll get cranky. You know, just take them away from that and you pop them somewhere else. And then again, you might get another 20, 30 minutes out of them before that happens again. Now, generally speaking, at that point is where I would say use distraction or change activities, because bubs get bored. You've really only got a window of 15, 20 minutes before they start to show you those cues that they're irritable and cranky, but they're not tired, they're not hungry, they're bored. They need a change of activity, they need a change of space. So take them outside, show them, and at this age that I'm talking about, it's very easy to distract them. You can take them outside and show them a tree, show them some leaves. If depending on where you live, you could show them some traffic, some cars, some, you know, it's quite easy to break that momentum. So, and what you then want to try and do in regards to that is then you're lengthening the time that they're obviously not feeding. So if they wait for the day at 7 and they feed at 7, you know, they ideally don't get fed for another 2 or sometimes 3 hours. Now, depending on the age of bub. So if your bub's closer to that 3.5, 4 month of age mark, their wake window at this point is about an hour and a half. Now, if you do have a bub that's waking frequently overnight, what you could try to do in this scenario is offer them a top up. So a top up feed is a little bit of milk before they go down for their nap. So as an example, they wake up at 7, their first nap of the day is going to be 8:30. They feed well at 7. That's the whole idea. They feed well at 7, then they play, they get distracted. You take them, change activities every 15, 20 minutes. And then around about 8:15 or so, give or take, before they go down for their nap, you can offer them a top-up feed. And this is just an opportunity for them to have a little bit of milk before they go down, in hope that 1, they settle reasonably quickly, but 2, they give you a good nap. That's the whole idea. But again, it's not a full feed. We're trying to avoid the snacking, but what we're trying to do here is give them that opportunity to, 1, more calories, but 2, increase your chance of a really good nap. Do it out in the lounge room. You don't want to go in the dark room. You don't want them to get all cozy. You don't want them to think this is a snuggle fest. It's business. We're filling up Bub's tummy in hope that they go down fuss-free and have a really good nap. And again, when Bub wakes up, if Bub only does a half an hour nap, then obviously we're not in control of that. But again, when they wake up, you don't want to offer a feed soon as Bub wakes up, because it hasn't been 3 hours, right? It's only been 2. And prior to that, he also had a top up as well. So this is where you want to string it out. You could use playtime, activity time, distraction to your advantage to try and gain that extra time before you then offer that feed. That 3-hour feed then might coincide with going down for another nap, depending again on your baby's wake window, how long they slept for, and so on. But yeah, like ideally to try and eliminate snack feeding, you want to increase the time obviously in between feeds, but that increases their appetite, and that's what you want. You want them to be hungry, you want them to be ravenous. So when they feed, they latch on and they feed properly. They don't get on you and they have a 2 or 3 minute suck and they get heavy eyes and they get those butterfly sucks and they doze off. Now they might only doze off for a few minutes before they wake up again and they've got another second wind. But what's happened in that time, they've gotten a little bit of milk, and it's not a huge amount of milk, it's only enough to take off the edge. And it'll only get you probably, like I said earlier, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you're lucky, an hour or so, before that cycle begins all over again. And it's not ideal for naps, it's not ideal for nights, it's not ideal for feeds. It's just this. And if that works for you, you've got a bub that enjoys that and it works for you, don't change it. I'm not here to change anything that works for you. But if you are in that scenario where your bub is snacking around the clock and you're not getting sleep in any way, shape or form, whether it's naps during the day or obviously overnights from night feeding, then that's one way to battle that, is by ensuring that bub is getting a full feed every 2 to 3 hours. And depending on the age of your bub and the wake window, you can start to offer top-ups. I'm a really big advocate for top-up feeds, especially for bubs who aren't on solids and have got that longer wake window, because again, it's all about getting those daytime calories in, and it's not about force feeding. This is the thing, it's an opportunity. If bub wants it, great. If not, no problem. Look, I hope that helps. I hope it gives you a bit of an overview of what you can possibly do in the instance that you are experiencing, cluster feeding or snack feeding around the clock. And for more tips and advice on this type of scenario and cat naps and how to lengthen, naps and obviously night wakings, then I've got all the information inside the app as well. So for any questions, feel free to pop them in the community.